Okay, so today is an exciting day because I got a new toy and I like it very much. I'm not gonna play it, but I got a singing bowl and super stoked. My dad's brother's wife had gotten it and she said she couldn't get the hang of it, and then it's just been sitting there for like 2 years. And the last time I saw her, she she kind of perked up and she's like, "Do you know what a singing bowl is?" It's like, yes. And I said that I wanted to get one for a while, or a set rather, but hadn't got that far yet. Don't eat that. That is not for you. But yes, so now I have one. She said she paid like $200 for it, and then couldn't get the hang of it and got tired of just having it sitting around, so she was trying to figure out who she'd give it to. And then I happened to be there, and we got along on lots of ways of viewing things and whatnot, and so she gave it to me, and it is an A. There you go. And what I just looked up said that one's associated with the third eye chakra, which is about intuition. So super stoked. I played it for a while in my office, and Buddha and Bodhi liked it as well. They both came over to the side of the cage and were just watching what I was doing. Don't like my pants. That's so weird. I hate it when he licks my pants. Yes. But anyway, if I didn't have so much crap on my desk, that might be this evening's project, where I work on that and then get it to where I can have the birds out. Especially because these guys are kind of, you can't tell right now because she's relatively behaved at the moment, but she's been driving me nuts. So it stormed last night, so she got drugged. She was just giving me the side eye. This one's got a side eye like no other. But she had to get doped because it was storming, and you know, it's good while she's doped because then she's like really peaceful and serene and whatnot. But the problem is when it wears off and you've been gone, then she's like super obnoxious on, hey, pay attention to me. And here's my toy, play with me, damn it. So that's why she's panting so hard, is because we did do that a little bit ago. And so she's, I did it so she would leave me alone for a while, because I knew otherwise she would not. And Taz got it. I was kind of feeling a little bit tired, and I guess just like I was collecting a whole bunch of dense energy today, like I do, right? And then I was thinking before I started the video, it's like, okay, so I should clear some of this before before I do the video. And it's like, hey, Bartman. So always with do the Bartman, and of course now I'm much better, more awake frame of being, I guess. Anyway, so I just had this, I just found these things, and this is so stupid. When I was playing roller derby, there was a girl that was really into like googly eyes, and like said she would like go find random places to stick them. And I just found this freaking Ziploc baggie of all sorts of size of googly eyes. So now it's like, ooh, what can I do to be annoying with these? Right? What can I give eyes around the house or whatever that, you know, or even not around the house? What can where can I put some random googly eyes in the community? Right, so I just feel like I'm going to have to do something with those now. So now that I remember they're there. Of course, I found them a while back when I was cleaning in here. And then obviously didn't do anything with them, and they were just staring at me on the floor when I was getting ready to start the video. So, yeah. Okay, okay, so the other day, come over here. What if I sit by you? Will you just pester me? Okay. Hi. Okay, that's enough. But the tail's happy. So, I got a foot. Thank you. Too much. Too close. Too close. Nope. That's enough. That's enough. Yeah, so the other day, so I was going to do a video yesterday. It didn't happen, obviously. But that was like weather related, and then I was going to go do one, and then it started thundering, and then that one, it's just like, you know what, just stay home. I probably should have done it when I was walking the dogs, but they needed their walk too, so we did that. But anyway, so Friday. What did we do Friday? Friday, I believe there was an appointment. Yes, there was an appointment. But I wake up, and that wasn't, like, nothing. Okay, the only thing that happened from waking up was that I didn't have enough time to give myself more time for my morning meditation type process and whatnot, right? So, and there's just been a lot going on otherwise. So that's kind of fallen off more than it should have. So as I go into the bathroom to get ready for my day, right? And I, sidetrack myself with playing on Instagram. And so there's like the thing that pops up with the Twin Flame had a picture posted. And it was this is so stupid. So stupid, right? But I've talked on here a lot about how every now and then something will pop up and it like triggers some kind of reaction in me, right? So like there's the one time where before I really knew what was going on with the connection, it's like there was like a picture with a girl that had her hand on his chest or whatever. It's just this like flash of like rage. It's like, this doesn't make sense. I don't even know this person. Why is this the reaction that I'm getting over a picture for somebody that I haven't even met, right? So what happened with that one was I ended up, I've been pulling, the cards that talk about sitting with your shadow and spending time to process through the uncomfortable feelings, acknowledging that they are there and sitting with them, to understand why they are there and what the bigger underlying issue is, right? So in that case, what happened was I ended up meandering through, okay, so there's this big intense jealousy feeling, and, I was getting ready to take a shower. I was like, this is ridiculous. It's like, I don't know this person. So why is this the response that I'm having? What is this feeling about? Right. And then I end up going on this little meandering path of thinking about the tattoo I have on the inside of my left arm. Right. And with that one, it was, okay, that one's my hailstorm quote. And it says, if you'll be yourself for no one else, they'll hate you because you're beautiful, right? So it's a line from, the song is called Bad Girls World, and I got really into it. I'm wanting to say I first heard it around the time Tyler passed away, and then it was one that I started hearing a lot when I was kind of processing through the stuff, like when I started writing letters to him to essentially set stuff down and get it out of my system. And so with this song, I got really hung up on this lyric, and it's like, because I spent so much of my life struggling to try to make everybody happy, trying to be liked by people and all this stuff. And it's like, all that was happening was that I lost myself, and, I wasn't really, people weren't liking me anymore. People, my family were still assholes. So, there's something on my phone. I totally thought it was on my shirt. So like I needed to stop doing that. Right. But then it was this line of the song, if you'll be yourself for no one else, they'll hate you because you're beautiful. And it's like, just that whole point of, if you lean into and try to be the full expression of who you are, people are always going to find something to hate about you, right? There are some people that only want to be miserable and negative, and I'm related to a bunch of them, which is why there's been a lot of this stuff that's been a struggle. And these clouds are doing something really funky out there. Because they look really dark overhead, and yet it's really bright, just the way I see the light. So anyway, not really relevant, but, you know, so this idea, right? So then I got really hung up on this line of this lyric and decided to have it tattooed on my arm, right? And now that I'm talking, I'm getting really hot. If I can unzip this all the way, because I'm struggling. Hold on. Okay, so much easier when you have two hands. So with the song, right? So going back to the jealous feeling and trying to figure out where it was. What happened was when I got the song lyric tattooed on my arm, every single time I have gotten a tattoo, except for the most recent one, I have had this phase of panic that I've always known was ridiculous. But nonetheless, every single time that I have gone to get a tattoo or started thinking about the next one that I wanted, I've gone through this process of feeling like this is the thing that sends me to hell, right? Because that was essentially one of those stupid ideas that I was raised with, was that the tattoos somehow are bad or whatever, and is what it is, right? So it's stupid, but still, because of the beliefs and the conditioning that I experienced in my younger years, every single time, which I think, okay, my skull that I have, my sugar skull, that was the 10th, I believe. So, okay, hold on. Let me count. I got my raven, my owl, my turtle, the dove and crown of thorns, the Jesus fish, that is now a lotus flower, this dude, the one on the other side, so that's 7, the one on my upper arm, 8, maybe it's 9. I'm not going to commit to that. Either way, one of them was a cover-up. And I remember thinking through this at one point recently, and it was like, it made sense if it was the 9th, because that was kind of the last of, I feel like this one was the last, or it was the last that I felt the anxiety about the tattoo. The last one, there was no anxiety anymore. It's like I outgrew that part. I dealt with that baggage and moved beyond it. So whether it was 9 or 10, I'll have to figure that out and get back to you. Because occasionally I will say, oh, it's this many, and then it's like, wait a second, I forgot one. And then it's like, oh, crap. But anyway, all right, it's irrelevant anyway. So the point was, that one was one where I got really anxious about this idea. And because I was anxious about this idea and refusing to sit with that concern, because that was the biggest thing. Like, if I really would have just said, is this really a problem? What is, where's this concern coming from? Like, at any of the points that I got any of the other tattoos, that like I could have handled that fear earlier, right? Excuse me. But for this one, for whatever reason, like the thing that I did was I wouldn't let myself, or because I was, I didn't want to spend too much time with this thought because I was afraid of this thought, I didn't double check the song lyric. Like, normally if I'm going to write something and I'm going to start it with like a song lyric or a quote or something, I'm going to check that and recheck it to make sure it is right, and then when I use it, right? But for whatever reason, because of the stupid idea with the conditioning and everything, I would not allow myself to sit down and like actually think about it and allow myself to double check it like I would have otherwise. So of course, when I'm dealing with this jealous feeling, it's like, what the hell is this all about? It takes me back to this moment and this processing of this whole thing, because what I later came to realize was what I was afraid of at the deepest level was, this idea of being abandoned, right? That something that I had done would somehow render me unlovable, and, God would just like, like, you fucked that one up, right? But I mean, like, that's ultimately the point of religion as we have it today is, it's been corrupted by the governments so much along the way, because the government doesn't like it when they start to lose power. And so, then they get in there and it's like, how can we make this back, swing this back in our favor and take control back, for what we want, right? And all they have to do is put in that little bit about, this is inerrant, God breathed, blah, 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 and nothing can be changed because, this is exactly, God breathed this, right? But it's like, the biggest thing that always stood out to me about that idea even was, like Hebrew scripture stuff. Anytime God used anybody, he never asked them to stop being who they were. So it's like, why would this scriptural thing be different? Why would that suddenly be the thing where he takes the person out of the person to breathe this through them and make it this inerrant, flawless thing? It's like, he wouldn't. That's not how God works. Or she wouldn't, rather. However you want to even look at that whole point. Like, because even that idea, is based on the idea of God as he, that comes from that whole idea of like the whole patriarchal religion thing. And, it's the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. No, fuck that. They literally Holy Ghosted the feminine so they could try to make it all about the other side of this and, just, fuck the rest of us over, right? So demonize women in all the ways to essentially keep people from realizing their own sovereignty. And, while you don't see yourself as a sovereign being, then you're, of the mind that you need somebody over you that is more powerful and, has the right answers and whatnot, right? So you want, if you don't remember who you are, if you go along with what the church wants us to believe, it's, you need somebody over you to tell you what you can do or what you can't do, and, to, tell you what's right and what's wrong and the things that are going to send you to hell and all this stuff. It's like, it's no. But anyway, so the whole issue I was having with the tattoo went back to this idea of that there could be something that made me unlovable, like in the grand scheme of things, right? So where that jealousy feeling came in at was this sort of, like the big thing with the twin flame connection is like at the deepest level, it's one soul in two bodies, right? And so living two completely separate incarnations and all these things, right? And it's like, I can see all the ways that makes sense, right? So everything one does directly affects the other. So I guess the other, as deep into the darkness one goes, the other's got to go to that as well at some level, right? So, and that goes to like, you have to, basically be able to hold the same energy, right? So I've definitely brought a whole lot of darkness into this connection myself, because there was so much shadow work ultimately that, I wanted to get at, I wanted to understand things, and you got to go into the darkness to really learn some of these things, right? So it's like, on that end, being the same soul, it would make sense, and ultimately you're already in agreement that this is the path that you're on, right? It's like this whole thing that was you agreed to before you incarnated, essentially. And then once you incarnate, then, you know, you have the things that come up to trigger the certain moments, like, you know, the stuff that happened leading me into the inviting the demons in thing, or how I ended up in the connection with my ex that I never should have married, that I did marry, you know, and all this stuff. It's like there were certain things that were locked in as this is a part of the plan. Now, it did, okay, like with this situation with my ex, it did not have to be him necessarily. As far as having that having that sense of wanting to understand how people get into toxic connections and then feel stuck and they can't get their way out, right? So there was going to be some kind of toxic connection. Did it have to be that one? Maybe not, but at some level, you know, at some level there's some kind of agreement energetically that that was the situation. Okay, so like, I feel like I'm not talking clearly at all right now. So for like the deal with my ex, had I listened to that original idea of, you know, when I've talked on here a lot about how when he first reached out to me on this app, my first thought was, I didn't take him seriously. It's like, yeah, right. And that was it. But for whatever reason, I continued to talk to him, even though I just had this thought of, no way, not this one, no way, right? You know, but then for whatever reason, I still ended up making the decisions that led to that connection being able to happen. And, you know, that's the energetic agreements, right? So things went like they went, right? And, you know, ultimately that was one of those things that kind of played into that idea of, you know, that abandonment wound, right? And I think, was it in the last video or the video before that, where I actually mentioned my ex's name, and like usually I just try to avoid that at all costs, but it was relevant from the standpoint that name meanings have always been important to me. And, you know, like in high school, I had the idea come to mind where I thought, okay, so Sarah means princess. So what if I get to the end of my life and realize that I left myself little breadcrumbs all along the way. And like my name meaning princess, you know, had more to do with the fact that at that point in my life, I felt, you know, anything but valuable, anything, but, you know, I was struggling with the suicidal ideation and all that crap. And, you know, had moments where I was not nice to people and also largely getting bullied, you know. So it was one of those things. It's like, what if my name meaning princess was to serve the purpose to remind me that I have more value than I've even been aware of at most points in my life, right? So that was the idea on that. But so this connection, right? So like I'm starting to make sense of all these different levels of this connection. And then this thing happens, and suddenly I'm struggling with this, you know, this jealous rage feeling over somebody that I've never met before. And it's like, what the fuck is that all about? And the big thing was the idea that this connection that I wanted to believe in since I was a little kid, right? So I've talked about when I was 4 and how I felt like, you know, my counterpart was checking in before he incarnated, right? So I was watching this movie with my cousin, got really hung up on the song Somewhere Out There from American Tail, the Fievel movie. And, you know, I'm this little 4-year-old kid. I got these little itty bitty jeans and this little white blouse on, and I'm sitting there on my knees watching, or on my, it was either my knees or my butt. I think I was kind of back and forth, because that's kind of what I've done a lot of my life. I don't sit necessarily in one position the whole time. Like, even now I'm like fidgeting and yeah. Anyway, but like that, so it makes sense that it would be either this position or that position, blah, blah, blah. But either way, the thing that was more important was the fact that I got so hung up in this idea, this energy of this song. And it was something that I heard a lot back then, because of course it was on the radio a lot. And every time it was just like, I would just get completely lost in the energy of the song and the idea that, there could be such a connection, such a love story, that, we would have this, we would go about our lives and, learn the lessons that we came to learn. And then one day our paths would come together and it would be this big, beautiful thing, right? So as a little 4-year-old kid receiving this message and, I've talked about having that sense of, are we still good for this? Is this still what you choose? Because, even as a 4-year-old kid that doesn't know shit about shit, it was still, I had to make the decision. Did I still want this thing that ultimately was planned before I incarnated, right? But, you still have to make your own decisions and whatnot. So it was like, based on where I was at that point, I felt like he was checking in on me to see if I was still on, right? If we're still on track for this big, amazing story, right? And, of course, I love me some love stories, all the happy, squishy stuff. Although I will say there have been big spans of time where it's like it was uncomfortable that it was something that I wanted. But ultimately the reason for the discomfort was because that so much of my life has demonstrated that wasn't what I had, right? So like with that check-in, there was the question of, if you choose this, it will be far more beautiful than you could ever possibly imagine, but there will be a lot of pain to get there. And, I even talked about that on here many times before. It's like, this little 4-year-old kid. Yeah. That one, let's do that one. Who cares about the negative stuff, right? It's just like, you didn't really understand how complex that would go or what all that would entail or anything, right? So, yeah, pain, got it. End, happy story, whatever. But, yeah, so had the check-in, right? So then, based on these things that I was piecing together about, this connection, about that check-in specifically, because that song has always meant a huge amount to me. Like, I've always loved that song. But, and I would, the big part was I would, like, just check out from everything when that song was on. And just like, that's all the music. Me and the music. That's all that matters, baby. So I would be lost in the music like I do because I listen to music over and over and over again, right? That's my thing, and I've always been that way, even back then. So then it's that sitting in that energy, that energetic space of this is what I want, right? And then, that idea that, once I realized the connection, because of course that didn't come up until I committed my love and career over to the universe to take the lead on, right? And it had happened in little ways throughout my life, but it still, wasn't the big ways until, 2023, where I actively said coherently that I wanted the universe to take the lead on my love life. It's like, it hasn't gone well for me. Let's just let the universe take the lead and see what happens, right? And then, I threw in the, while we're at it, since it's going to like take the lead on the love story, I might as well just throw my career in there too, because that hasn't gone very well either. So, so I've talked about how I was listening to one of his songs, and then shortly after I set this intention, and then while I was listening to the song, it's just like, I feel this all the way through. It's like, I feel it all the way through my body. It's like, there's somebody out there that gets it, that gets the shit that I'm carrying, right? And that I've always been carrying and not known what to do with or how to do anything with it. It's like, there's somebody else out there that gets it, right? And while I'm sitting there in that feeling, this little thought chimes in with, that's him. That's the one you've been looking for all your life. And my initial reaction was, yeah, right, he's out of my league. But honestly, back then, I have no problem saying that, yeah, that was actually the case, right? Because wasn't in a good space myself. It's still very damaged. And yet there's this thing that's being presented to me, and sounds good in theory, but I don't completely believe it because I don't think at that level, because, see right there, because at that point in my time, I didn't think I was worth it, right? I didn't feel like the universe would actually intend to give me this big, amazing story. It was something that I always wanted. There was always that draw for this, the romance, the sappy things, the whatever. But at the same time, a fear of really allowing myself to believe and to lean into that belief. So when this whole thing came up with the picture, it was taking me right back to that, I don't believe I'm worth it, right? But it was through the little meandering through my tattoo and that whole situation where I finally realized that it was like the underlying theme was, I'm afraid the universe is going to abandon me. It's presented me with this thing, this wonderful sounding thing, and this possibility, and like all sorts of things that support this idea. And yet I'm afraid it's just going to like pull the rug out from under me, right? That's what it was, right? But like that's largely the point of my channel, is to process through that stuff and to get it out of my system, right? To own up to the fact that, yeah, I believed a lot of that stuff, which is why I've had to bring it into this space and to purge it here. So anyway, so that was one of those things, right? And then there was like another time where last year I had gotten off of social media completely for the better part of the year. And, there were a couple other things that I was like, okay, like my concerts, like, I want to post my pictures, right? I don't want to save those for like the next year when I'm back on. It's like, I'm going to take a little hiatus from my hiatus and put these pictures in the space so I have them around the time the thing actually happened. And so, I did, right? And somewhere along the thing, he had like a little video or something that popped up, and it was it triggered, like there was just like all this dissonance in me. It was like, it's like there's something wrong with me, and I cannot be watching anything this dude does, right? I have to put that completely aside and not try to see what's going on in his world. It's like, I cannot do that because it makes me feel all jacked up and incoherent or unprepared or whatever, because there's lots of different layers to it. So it was just one of those things that it was like enough of a reaction from me to know that I was not ready for that space yet, right? So there's been, there's other things that have come up that it's just kind of like, ooh, and it's a whole different thing. But there have been those those particular things that will show up, and it's just like, not ready for that. I can't do this. I cannot, I'm just energetically, we are not a match, basically. Energetically, at that point in time, we were not a match. I had to not be able to see anything that he was doing because it was just, fucking with me. And I couldn't handle any more things fucking with me while I'm trying to process through all the shit that I'm trying to get out of my system, right? So the biggest thing is the connection has been the driving force keeping me moving forward. So it takes me back, finally, to Friday, right? So Friday morning, I'm getting ready to get ready. And I get distracted with my phone because it's easy. You do that shit, right? And he has this picture with some girl, and like they're not touching or anything even. And it's like there's somebody else in the picture. But it was still that same, it wasn't the jealous feeling. It was just that wobble. And so I'm feeling this dissonance. It's like, the fuck, and, I think one of the biggest things that whole incident served was to show me how much I've changed from the other thing. Right. And, like the first time before I was, protecting my boundaries or any of that stuff. Right, it was just a straight wash of this jealous rage. It's like this is crazy. So, so I had to process through it. But what Friday was the opportunity to see how far I've come, because I didn't go through that jealous rage. What happened instead was there was a little bit of a wobble. It was like something knocked my wheel loose on my cart at the grocery store or something, right? It was working fine, and now all at once it's going like this, and it's not fun to deal with anymore. And, immediately, as soon as I felt the wobble kick in, that intuitive voice was just like, don't you dare. It's like, you have come so far. Do not go all the way back and just you've had this little thing, insert a wobble in your day. Do not allow this to be the thing that sets you back. You've come so far. Do not go backwards, right? And so, so I went ahead and got ready and tried just not to think about it at that point. I was trying to, I actually found this, I got on YouTube and found this Nordic Light tarot reading, and it was funny because she had just posted it 45 minutes beforehand, and it said something about an urgent message from your guides. It's like, hey, that seems relevant. And I listened to it while I was getting ready, and it was just speaking to that same point. It's like, you've already, she said, one of the things she said was that there was, she said, there's something that you're dealing with that your guides are saying is a little thing that you've already dealt with. You feel like it's a big thing, but your guides are saying you've already worked through the biggest parts of it, and now it's a little thing that, is just coming back for the reminder, basically, and to show you how far you've come. Right? So it's like, I needed that message. I did. And it was funny because it was just so perfectly timed, where she'd posted it 45 minutes before, I'm getting ready, and then need this message, and urgent message from your guides. Yeah, I'd say it's pretty urgent and pretty dead on accurate. And I ended up watching it again later and taking notes because there was so much that was relevant for it too. But anyway, so I take my mom to her appointment. The entire way over there, we were talking about my dad. And I don't remember the full amount of what we were talking about with him. Highlights. We talked about how she's basically my grandmother, because she was going on and on about how much she could not stand my grandmother. It's like, your husband has turned into his mother. It's like, and it's not even like a little bit, it's like a huge amount. It's like, I mentioned that, my grandma always had this tendency to play dumb. It's like he does that. It's like, yes, I know he's had the strokes, and yes, I know that there are some things that have been affected by that whole thing. I said, but there's a lot of the stuff that he was doing before, and now he just has an excuse to do more of it. And something that happened later that day, but it was an example, and okay, so there were these two tote lids that for some reason were behind the couch. And they've fallen over several times, but, they stayed behind the couch. For some reason, I've set them up many times, and I always am annoyed, and it's like, why are these here? But never really thought to move them somewhere else, because the boxes were like, they're full of clothes that my mom had to go through, and she did that finally the other day. But the lids were just over in this other spot for some reason. And the dogs would knock them over, and then we'd put them back up, or then something else would happen, and, it's just like this stupid ordeal, and it's like, why is nobody actually dealing with them? Myself included. But the other day, they got moved. And I didn't move them. If it was me, they would either be between the couch and the bench for the table, or over in the closet that Gracie had her toys in for a while. That's recently changing again since she's not around now. But they got moved, and they weren't in that spot. My mom didn't do it either. And it's a Friday later in the day. Okay, I will say, I took her to her appointment, and while she was in the appointment, I took that time to do it was one of the Honest Guys meditations, just to kind of regroup and bring myself back into a good space, right? Because that little wobble moments like this, I need this out of my system. And, the conversation with Mom was actually pretty good. And, a lot of what was said, I feel like needed to be said. Because honestly, what it is at this point is me calling attention to the fact that, yes, my dad might be worse on a lot of stuff from where he was before, but none of it's actually new. And, he's always had that misogynistic idea of somebody else has to take care of me, and you are a woman, so that is obviously one of your jobs, right? But not exclusively, because he also told my brother December last year that as the oldest, it was his responsibility to take care of his parents when things started going wrong. Right. And then my brother took that opportunity to move to Oklahoma with my encouragement and forceful nudging in the process, because, I kept telling him what I was noticing, and he started really noticing it for himself too. And then he was like, I just don't feel like I'm going to be able to, we're not going to be able to raise Gracie how we want with them in the middle of it. It's like, you're not, that's just all there is to it. That was something that I talked to my mom about the other day, not my brother, but like she wants to talk about like how his personality is so different. It's like, no, it's not. It's like, it was just hidden at a deeper level, and you weren't aware that it was there. And the part that I told her today was me and my brother were taking on, we were trying to see him in a better light. So, a lot of the better ways that any of us viewed him before, it wasn't because this toxic shit wasn't there. It was just, we were trying to see better where there wasn't really better to be seen, right? So, going back to that whole bad tree, bad fruit thing, like he's always had some of these things that I feel like we were more aware of, and we internalized them rather than seeing it for what it was as something he was doing. Right. But, so going back to my mom, what I told her, or one of the things that I told her on Friday was he was telling Gracie he didn't like her, this little kid, before his strokes. His strokes happened back in April. It was last year that he flat out told her he didn't like her. but there were other times that he either smacked her in the face or was trying to reach around to be able to do that, right? That kind of stuff. It's like that wasn't new, right? That was stuff that was there before the strokes, right? And, you know, and then even when Gracie was 2, so this was 2018, my brother and sister-in-law and my mom and dad took her to Disney World. And when they did, my dad was showing his ass. And at one point, they ended up on these, you know, the electric carts because, you know, they got all these health problems. They can't walk all day, all that crap. So they got the carts. And at one point, I guess my dad damn near drove it up a wall and flipped it. I don't think he fully did, but I think he came really damn close and was showing his ass in front of security to the point that my brother thought he was getting ready to get them all thrown out of the park. And so it's like this stuff. It's like, it's always been there. It's just, what is it that's now allowing it to come out? And I think a big part of that was, okay, my brother and I started setting boundaries and started not letting them have access to our energy like they did before. And also, you know, that they're, you know, getting older and they think that, you know, we're supposed to act a certain way because they're older now, right? And we're supposed to take care of them. Oh my God. Kind of ties in with a thing today too. Anyway, going back to the totes. So my dad moved these lids, but see, with him, it's always, he does things to inconvenience you, period. You know, I've talked about when I was cleaning the one room all the time, and then I'd get to a point where I would hit a wall and have to take a break from it for a while. And what I noticed was their stuff always started creeping into my space, right? So I have my skate stuff on top of my dog crates, right? So to dry them out after I use them when they were all sweaty so they didn't just sit in my bag and stink. And what I kept noticing was it'd be Diet Coke bottles, it'd be dirty silverware, napkins, his hoodie, his blanket, whatever, his shit kept ending up in my stuff, right? So it was like, now you have to deal with me, right? So that's like the biggest thing. This was before the strokes, mind you, that started happening, and that I really, you know, okay. Let's go back to November 17th, 2023, the video that I did that day after my father called me a dumb bitch, right? This has been in him for a long time. And it's like, the less access he has to my energy, the more misogynistic he demonstrates himself to be. And just an ass in general. And yeah, so like starting out on this channel, that has been one of the biggest things that I have noticed was it's like all this shit keeps coming back to my father. It's like, this is fucked up, right? But like this ultimately the example of masculinity that I've had demonstrated in and around me, like in my space in my lifetime, has been very toxic, right? They have the energetic agreements where somebody else is supposed to clean up after them, right? So like even my grandfather and my grandmother signed onto this whole bullshit thing, and you know, she was going to keep his illusion alive, and you know, then my mom comes along and she buys into the illusion because she's trying to earn daddy's affection, and then the next 2 sisters come along, and you know, like by the time the 3rd daughter came along, you know, he accepted that he wasn't going to have any sons, so you know, he had to be happy with what he got, right? So the one that was a tomboy, you know, was the most acceptable, right? And then my mother, because she was basically bending over backwards to serve his, to serve this whole idea, right? She was trying to feed into the illusion to keep his illusion alive that, you know, he had this big happy family, but what he actually had was a hot mess that nobody was happy, but he, you know, he wasn't even happy, right? So it was just the whole toxic shebang, right? Back to the freaking tote lids, because this is important. My mom tripped over him. They had fallen. I don't know how or when they got put where they did, but they got put there, and dogs probably knocked them over, and Mom tripped over them and fell again. And, you know, we were getting ready to go somewhere else. Could we have another, no, that was on Thursday. Thursday was the tote lid day. But the thing with that was, she said, I don't know, I didn't put him here. And I said, I didn't put him there. And my dad's like, I didn't put him there. It's like, well, somebody put him there. And of the three of us, my mom and I are the two that I trust didn't actually put it in the way, right? Or were the least likely to put it there. And oops. Although he can play dumb now. And I said that was one of the things Friday morning when I was talking to her. It's like, he is just like his mother. He will play dumb on a lot of things. It's like, sure, there might be some things where his brain is somewhat scrambled because of the strokes, but there's a lot more going on, and he absolutely does play dumb. I said the one thing, working in mental health for almost a decade, that was something that we were very familiar with, was when people were actually playing dumb versus actually acting out with their illness. There's a difference. And you know, he's just the prime example of constantly acting out, honestly. You know, and I told her, I think I told her this on Friday too. It's like going back to when he had I said, okay. I said, when I first moved back, you had the conversation with him that he was not allowed to use my bathroom anymore. And she said, right. And I said, when you were concerned that he might be having strokes or having a stroke, and I ended up calling 911 that night to get his ass taken to the hospital. I said, you told him to go to the bathroom in my bathroom. I said, and I know you didn't see this. I said, but I saw it. And I said, you said, we'll just go to this one because it's closer. And I said, and he fucking smirked. And I said, and you will not convince me otherwise. It's like, I saw that man fucking smirk just like he fucking smirked when, you know, when he shat on the floor and left it because I was supposed to have to clean it up. That was just, I wasn't supposed to yell at him or anything. I was just supposed to do it. And I was pissed. And I flipped a lid and went in there and was like, so is it coffee or is it shit? And he said, it's shit. And I said, then why the fuck is it still on this carpet? Well, I was going to clean it up later. No, you're going to clean it up now is what you're going to do. You know, and there's been like some stuff that, you know, my mom's gotten after him recently because, okay, well, like with that day, when he shit on the floor, he also had, I think, sweatpants that he had shit on. I don't know if it was the same shitting or not, because when I saw him walking around that morning, he was running around bare ass naked. And infuriating enough as it is, or as it was. But we've been, that's the one thing he's doing is, you know, we're a lot more vocal when he's doing dumb shit that we don't any part of, like him running around naked, or him running around in just Depends or whatever, right? Or just any of that nasty shit. I said it was the same thing. I said, when we shut the house and I went ahead and used the carpet cleaner when he was supposed to have cleaned the thing or cleaned it up and didn't, you know, but then laid in it. I said he was sitting there when I started running the carpet cleaner in here. And that was the night I went off on him about how I said, I was said something about I will make your life a living hell if you do the shit again. When I started running the carpet cleaner, he smirked too. It's like, it's like, I'm seeing it right there. You know, I talked about it on here before too, about at some level, it's almost like, this is probably going to sound silly, but like seeing and experiencing his demons, if you will. So it's like the worst of him. It's like there's what he's doing at the surface, and then there's this deeper level where it's like, that's bullshit. I can see that for what it is, and I'm going to call it out, and you're not going to be happy with me, but I'm already not happy with you either. And, this is kind of a shitty shared existence, but I've talked a lot about how, I basically my entire life felt like he resented me, right? So, talked about like the stuff with the car, and if the car blew up and took the kid and the car, it solved 2 problems. It got rid of the kid and the car, right? 2 problems, bam. So, my brother and I have had that conversation several times too, because he kind of felt that as well with the resentment. But it, like, my dad's choosing. Okay, so I've talked on here about how before my mom, he was involved with some lady that I think was also in the military, and she ended up moving out to Germany. He had the opportunity to go to Germany, did not go. Instead, because he was obligated as the firstborn to take care of his mom and dad when they were aging, he didn't go, right? So my brother and I have talked a lot, because my brother is the one that mentioned it more often, with wondering what happened if he would have, if he would have stayed with Kathy. And it's like, I don't know anything about that story, except that my brother is as familiar with it as he is, and my experience of feeling like he resented me, or us, but like that idea of, if he stayed behind to do the right thing and taking care of his mom and dad because they were getting older, and of course I've talked about that a lot too. One of the things he said to my brother was that it was his responsibility as the oldest to take care of his aging parents. So my brother went to Oklahoma. And the other end of that is, I am the daughter. I am supposed to be doing it too, right? Just because I'm a daughter, right? I wasn't supposed to have any kind of life of my own. Just, I exist to clean up after them. I wounded that finger today. I don't think, you gotta see the little red line. I dropped I went to get in my drawer to get a shirt out, and it fell out and broke my nail. Nail's gone, but not all the nail, obviously. I still have a short one, but it's got a little red line now. But anyway, right, so yeah, so as the daughter, right? And then I've talked about how, since I was noticing all their shit creeping in every time I was doing anything, I basically stopped doing anything for a while. With the exception of wherever my stuff is, right? But now the living room is mostly their shit, because, they got to get their dresser fixed. So in the meantime, everything moved out of their room into the living room so the guy could get in there to reach the thing. And he hasn't come out to fix it yet, because I think he just recently got the parts, or he's still waiting on them. But anyway, it's supposed to happen soon. We'll see. So another thing that happened on Friday was okay. So Thursday, the Escape, last time I got in it kind of did the sputtering thing. It's like, we're at the point where that thing needs an oil change, and it's not just hit the button, because every single time I've ever said anything to my dad, it's just like, reset it. It just needs to be reset. It's like, nope, I'm pretty sure that isn't actually entirely the case, but since you don't give a shit more than you do, however, we're at the point where it's like, yeah, I'm not trying to mess that car up when that's what I use to drive my dogs everywhere. So since they're not going in that vehicle right now, because it's not getting driven anymore until I get the oil changed on Tuesday, we've just been walking around the side lot, right? And so we'll go into my grandma's yard a little bit, and up by my aunt's fence, and then back around the back fence, and then over the side lot, blah, blah, blah. And at one point I saw that I think I wanted to check the weather or something on my phone, because I knew it was supposed to be getting cold. Anyway, I was checking my phone, saw that I had a message. Apparently my volume was off or down, And my aunt sent me a message saying that she had another piece of fish over there if I wanted to go over there. And it's like, no, I just ate. I'm not hungry, right? So, it was Long John Silver, so it's like the only fish I will eat, and it's like, it's really bad for you and really makes you feel gross, right? So, but my mom and I went out after her appointment to IHOP, so it's like, I just ate. I'm not hungry, right? And my mom had this conversation with her before that. So anyway, I'm walking around the side lot. I see I have this message. I respond, no thanks, I already ate, walking the dogs. And she's like, well, how far are you going to go? It's like, I don't know. It's like until I'm done walking the dogs, right? Until, they haven't started pulling back to the house yet or anything. It's like they were pulling over to my grandma's house because they know that there are snacks there. However, I don't like going to my grandma's house anymore, which I talked about that on here a whole lot too. Basically, she and my dad are at the same level. I just not interested. So just kind of avoid her like the plague, right? As I'm going around on the second to last lap, it's like, yeah, we'll do one more. We should have just ended it there. So we go around, and we're in my grandma's backyard, and my aunt does one of these. It's me. Did not plan that out well. Yeah, definitely did not think that through all the way before I did it. That was the reaction they do too. That was what she did. That was what they did, except for they went in the direction of the door that she was banging on at my grandma's house, right? And she knows I don't like going over there. And I've even kind of loosely told her why. But anyway, because the dogs were pulling that direction every time we went through, and then she did that, obviously we had to go in. So we go in. My grandma's eating her food, and, I don't even know what all she gave Ziva. I think she got a big, fried shrimp, got, like, a couple of really big things, not just a little treat or anything. It was, like, big pieces of what she was eating, and, Ziva's the smallest one, right? So she didn't need this huge-ass food. Of course, she's the one that's all about the food anyway, so she gets anything and everything. She'll go looking on her own if she doesn't think you are doing enough to appease her belly. But anyway, so my grandma gives her these things, and she's just like, great. And the other two, because I had their leashes in the other hand, they did not get the stuff that my grandma was handing out. And so my aunt was like, well, here's a piece of fish. You want to just split it with them? It's like, I don't want them to have the shits. And that's basically what that's good for, right? So she put it back down. She's like, well, here, and she makes me follow her into the living room. And she has these soup bone things. And there's like 6. It's like, I only have 5 dogs. I don't need 6 of these. Keep one. And I will take the other 3. Now that this has happened, this is a whole ass ordeal. We'll deal with it later, right? So, Gidge and Taz got a couple fries from her plate, but it was like not the big stuff that Ziva was getting. And as my aunt and I are having the conversation of their soup bones, she says, well, sorry to interrupt. I didn't know they were going to act that way. I said, yes, you did. I said, that's the one thing this family is good about doing, is knowing that something's going to cause a reaction and doing it anyway. And of course they reacted. So we had to follow through because, the annoyance has already come to their attention. So, now we're dealing with it. So, so we have these soup bones, right? So finish our lap because that was the last one we were doing. And we come back into the house, and I know how mine are. They're brats. I'm aware of this. So Gidge's just looking at me like, what? No, I'm not. So the first thing I did was take them into my office, give them each one, and shut the door behind me as I left to give the other 2 theirs. And, I gave Pepper hers. She was in my parents' room. I went and, originally I had handed it to my dad. And then when I decided to leave mine locked up, I went back out there. I said, have you given it to her yet? And he said, no. So it's like, I'm going to give it to her because otherwise it's just not going to happen and it's going to end up somewhere and somebody else is going to get it, another one. So, I think I just threw hers out the window or out the door, the dog door. That's the thing I've been doing lately, is just pushing through. She's usually standing between the dog door and the back door. And if I have like a treat for him, like before we're leaving, then I'll just stick hers out there, which she's starting to figure out. If she wants her treat, then she's going to have to go over there and get it. Otherwise, somebody else is going to come out and get it. But anyway, so she had her thing, and so I went back into my office with the dogs. Being peaceful, all is well. Until... why is she perked up like that? I'm not ready. Not done. No. My dad goes through and bangs on the door. Yes. My office door. Because it was closed. And I was pissed. I said, what? And got no answer. And I opened the door. Because, of course, like, it always irritates the shit out of me. Because you saw how my dogs acted when I hit the window. That's what they do. Right? So he bangs on my door and walks away. And I'm like, I open the door. It's like, what the fuck do you want? Right? You started this shit. It's annoying as fuck. Now what? Right? And he said, I didn't want nothing. I was just kind of like, fuck you, dude. Fuck you. And, I'm walking back to my mom's room. I'm just kind of like, oh, got the angry eyes on and everything. Just kind of like irritated as fuck. And my knee pops. Then I hear my dad say, oh, I'm sorry. My mom heard that part. And she's like, see? And I said, but you didn't hear what immediately followed that much quieter. Because he said, oh, I'm sorry, but I'll do it again. And it's like, clear as day. I heard it because I was closer to the other room. Like, he definitely said it more lowly, right? A lower tone of voice. So it couldn't go, so my mom wouldn't pick up on it. She heard the apology part, but she didn't hear the other part. It's like, he literally only did it to get a reaction out of me, right? Because he knew it would piss me off. Because, okay, Taz is obnoxious with the barking here lately. And like, there's so much of it he has to do. He's always done it. But now it's like this squeakier bark. It's like, what the fuck, man? And it's this really irritating thing because my dad 1 minute will be bitching about him. He'll go from wanting to have this conversation, and he's having a conversation with Taz, right? And then it continues 30 seconds longer than he thinks he should. So then he's screaming at him because, shut the fuck up. And it's like, you were just encouraging it, you asshat. It's like this kind of dumb shit, right? So yeah. So, obviously that was one of those things that kind of was that infuriating thing. And then what I really came to notice, I think, like, it got later in the day, it's like that little bit of a wobble. It's like that was enough for this dumb shit to come up and to really be irritating again. And yeah, it's irritating. Some days I'm better at reacting to it than others. And some days it's just like straight livid, right? But I feel like that was one of the biggest purposes of that whole thing, because I feel like that's something that I'm still being worked on, that I need to give them less reaction for the dumb shit, because, just like with my ex, when I started carrying the red Jasper around, and I was suddenly looking at things from a slightly more removed place, and when he would say something or do something, it's like, he's just looking for a reaction, do not give it to him. And that really pissed him off, right? Because I wasn't giving him the attention that he wanted. He wanted to piss me off. So when I stopped reacting, and if you like paying attention to like, people talking about ways to deal with this narcissistic abuse, the gray rocking, right? It's the idea of just don't give them a reaction at all. And that infuriates them immensely. And, you know, I've gone back and forth on it a few times about whether I'm committed to thinking my dad's actually narcissistic versus just extremely toxic. I could see it both ways. So, you know, mom, just straight up narcissism thing, right? So it's like, but like with my dad, there's a little more of a question mark, a little more hesitation on being fully committed to that idea. But ultimately, that gray rocking thing would be a big thing. And I think it's what I'm meant to do more of, because he is looking to be a dick. And I mean, basically, you know, like, that's the biggest thing. I'm not cleaning up after him, which that takes me to today's bit. And so, you know, my brother moved across the country, so he's not fulfilling his role, and I'm living here and not catering to his bullshit. So I'm not fulfilling my role either, right? But, you know, that doesn't mean he's not going to stop picking and stop trying to do stuff, stop trying to get the reaction. And honestly, there's a part of me that wonders if, you know, I stop giving him the reaction, like, period. I don't think he's going to be around much longer, honestly. Reaction or no reaction, but I think the reaction gives him a little more to 111 to hold on to, and like he's actually doing something shitty, but you know, it's that sucking the life out of the next generation thing. And, you know, that's the biggest thing, I think, with this whole, you know, like, world at the moment. It's like the older generations didn't set us up to have any kind of worthwhile existence. We're supposed to cater to their bullshit. No. You know, like, I'm thinking of all the times where, you know, my dad's made the comment, okay, he read something on Facebook, and yeah, I really agree with that, right? And it's like something where it's talking about, you know, how the next generation would be crippled if we, you know, if they were forced to drive a stick shift or whatever. And it's like, when he last said something that had anything to do with that, I just remember thinking, it's like, but you're the assholes that didn't try to encourage us to learn this shit, because you didn't want us to live in a better world. You wanted us to live in the same shit existence that you did. And that was our burden to bear, was we existed because you brought us into this space, and we're just supposed to clean up your shit. Fuck all of you. God damn it. Right? But it's like that's ultimately like the whole, you know, government systems, you know, like religious systems. It's like, that's the purpose it served, is they suck the life out of us to continue existing longer. Meanwhile, we end up with these assholes that have, you know, one foot in the grave in a freaking political office they have no business being in. And they somehow think that, you know, we're supposed to serve them. You know, it's like, my father is a much closer version of, it's like, okay, the temper tantrums that you see with the freaking, you know, the dictator wannabe, that's the same shit my dad's doing, right? It's like, it's like a direct correlation. It's like, as I've been changing things in this immediate space, I'm seeing it play out in a much larger space as well. It's like, fucking toxic assholes, man. It's like, okay, everybody that's, you know, fucking the system over, that's got, you know, one foot in the grave anywhere, just put the rest of you in the grave too, and let us deal with what we have to deal with, and create a world that is, you know, that we want to live in, that future generations can live in, right? That we're not just fucking everybody else over because we've been fucked over forever. We're trying to do something better so that those that come after us have something worthwhile. But that's not what they want, right? They want to be catered to, even though they've not done anything worthwhile to, have their asses kissed over, but that's what they want, right? And yeah. Anyway, because we're not doing enough. No, Gidge, take a break. My dad, today we went out to lunch for his brother's birthday. And of course, since they're not supposed to be driving, that's me. But I'm always down for food. So, and it's kind of obnoxious because I like my dad's side. I don't know. Everybody's got their issues, right? I don't like my grandpa on my mom's side, period. Because I can see ways I existed exactly to keep him alive longer, right? And that's the whole purpose of my existence, was they sucked the life out of me to give it to him, and he stays around 33 years longer than it was necessary because he was sucking the life out of me, right? And and all the rest of us too. Like, my mom was spending all her time living in the hospital with him every single time he was in the hospital there at the end, and she lost some brain cells. Like, seriously, like, you can, just that amount of time that he was spending with her, and, she would have to, he would say her name in the middle of the night, and, she'd have to comfort him and assure him that she was still there. It's like, she wasn't sleeping hardly at all. The brain's kind of depleted on a lot of things, and that's not shit she can get back, right? That's just, he sucked the life out of her and then died anyway, right? But he wasn't supposed to die. We were just supposed to continue feeding him our life force so we can all have a shitty existence, but he can stay longer. No. Anyway, he almost fell off, I noticed. So we go out with my dad's family today, and there are certain things I like about them more. I think the bigger thing is, like my aunt that gave me the singing bowl today, her husband, they all got the Jones temper, right? My grandfather was a hothead, and there's a mean streak, right? And they all got that. However, like the uncle that I was going to talk about, he's got like a whole bunch of broken teeth, and he ain't gonna get them fixed. I've talked about that a lot too. I got that one. I have another one back here, and then I have the one that the cap popped off of. And because I was made to think that it was a problem with me being imperfect, it's like all the fixation with getting my teeth fixed, right? Because they got the spots, and that's not the right color, right? It's like there was this focus on trying to improve me because I wasn't good enough, right? So it's like there was this whole, a huge part of my existence was trying to, or having people try to fix me because of all these issues that they could see that were a problem for them, right? Rather than being taught to, love myself, to appreciate the fact that, so maybe they're not that pretty, but they still function well. And like the one my cap came off of, that thing's been covered for years. And, once they cover it, the actual tooth doesn't get brushed, right? So it's like, whatever's there is damaged from the years of having this other thing on over top of it, except for now that other thing's not over the top of it. Now, I can still chew and everything, and it's not a problem. It feels gross. It looks nasty. But it was like something that really made me stop and think. It's like, how much of the work that I've had to have done, like on my teeth, was even necessary, right? Because that's like one of the biggest things was, like when I've talked a lot on here about my aversion to the dentist because, you know, the time that I went to the dentist and I had a 10:30 appointment and I didn't leave until like 3:30 because I was supposed to have, I think it was probably a cap or something stupid. And he numbed me up and disappeared. And it was like he forgot all about me. And I was so sick of sitting there that by the time he finally shows back up to do the work, you know, to drill it on my tooth, I was so tired of sitting there that I didn't tell him that I could feel it because I was afraid if I told him or if he gave me another shot, he'd disappear and not come back again. So I felt all of it and it sucked immensely. And what happened was I have an aversion to the freaking dentist, right? So there was like this 10-year span of time where I didn't go at all. But the biggest thing is like I got to a point where it's like I had a tooth that was starting to hurt. And as soon as it started to hurt, what I started doing was, you know, flossing and brushing more times than I normally would have. And it's like I would become obsessive about it for a while. And, you know, that was the same thing. But since it'd been so long and I knew I had insurance, I went ahead and sucked it up and got an appointment with a guy I graduated high school and college with. Obviously not the same. Like we both went to Ball State, but he was in the School of Dentistry and I was in psychology. So, right. So, but anyway, you know, my mom babysat him. We have history, right? He's like one of the few people I trust, period, let alone with my teeth. And when I went in with him, he said, you know, for somebody in their mid-30s, you've had a lot of work. And then he also says, but for somebody who hasn't been to the dentist in 10 years, your teeth look really good. So it's like, yes and yes. So it's like, what of the work that I had done was even necessary, right? So like, this tooth's fake because I had to have veneers on it because they didn't like my spots. The spots were a problem. So then my tooth breaks off and then, you know, so it's mostly fake because there's like a sliver of my tooth in there. But like at the time that happened, like that was this big traumatic thing. And I cried because my tooth broke. Like I was in the dorm bathroom brushing my teeth my sophomore year in undergrad, and my tooth, like the front of my tooth just broke off. It's like, you know, so it's like I cried because my teeth have always been like the bane of my existence, basically. There's so much problems with them, right? There always have been, and I've always been judged for my teeth and all this stuff. So that was something that I had a whole lot of struggles with. So then, you know, for this thing to pop off and like it doesn't hurt. And I still use it. It's like every once in a while I'll get like a little bit of a cramp or something in there. But it's like, for the most part, it just doesn't. And it's like, so how much of what I had done, because that was the one that was covered for years by this cap that's now no longer there. So how much of it was even necessary, right? And that's, anyway, going back to my uncle. So he's got a whole bunch of broken teeth. And he's not going to get them fixed, right? So he just kind of embraces the hillbilly side of himself, and, you know, he laughs and jokes about it, and, you know, it's just who he is, right? But it's not, he's not going to let people, you know, make him feel like shit about his teeth. I mean, however he may have felt along the way or whatever, it's like, that's just part of who he is, right? So I think that those type of moments are the things that I like about my dad's side of the family. It's like, it's not, oh, you have this problem, let's fix it. Right? We have to change something about you to make you better. It's just, you're not going to do anything about this. You just leave me the fuck alone kind of a thing. Right? And, yeah, so again, you know, I've had other stories with the other uncle and other things. It's just, I feel, okay, the other snag on that side of the family is that's also the more, I don't want to talk politics and anything like that with them because I know where they stand, and it's going to be, you know, right with the assholes that are currently in charge, just because it's the whole, you know, like my dad, like the white supremacy thing. And, yeah. because I've heard racist comments come out of some of their mouths before, and it's just, I in no way approve of any of that. I've talked a lot about that kind of stuff on here before too. It's like, you know, some of the people that have been the safest in my life, you know, were okay, like the most, it's getting dark. So I need to wrap it up soon. You know, I've talked about how like the ones that I've been most often bullied by were the white men, right? So it's like white men haven't always been safe in my world. But at the same time, ouch. Oh, it's a long way down here. Okay. Oh, crap. The troops are coming. But at the same time, no. That I don't think I meant at the same time. Anyway, look, not all white men, obviously. You know, my brother is a white dude, and he's like one of my greatest allies throughout my life. However, by and large, those that have been bullies were white dudes. You know, and I can name several. Stop. No. Quit. Stop. This squeaky bark. That's annoying. Just put a box on your head. How do you feel about that? It's like, leave me alone. Hey, where's your toy? Where's your toy? Where's your toy? Get your damn toy. Damn it. So, like, the black dudes that, you know, were the safest ones, honestly. And I know that's not going to be, like, across the board. Hold on. Anyway. So, largely, like, the ones that I've had the best and easiest kind of connections with, the ones that I trust to save my ass. You know, like, okay, the group home. When I was working at the first location, the van we had to take the clients to the grocery stores broke down. And it was a black dude that, you know, was able to socialize with somebody and, you know, connect with them, get the van jumped and all that stuff. It's like, I don't know what I would have done without you here. You know, and him and one of the other ones, like, they used to walk me out to my car to make sure I got there safely, just because they didn't want anything to happen to me and they knew it was kind of a sketchy area, right? So it's like, I've had several experiences like that. And I was actually thinking about this recently too, because a few years ago when I needed to change family doctor, I started looking around and I wanted to go somebody in the network that I worked in. And I found this one guy that I felt drawn to go to as my family practice provider, right? And it's a black dude. And I love that dude. He's awesome. And it's like, I can ask him some of these questions that, you know, I might, okay, like some of the doctors that I've had in the past, you just feel a little, make you feel like kind of stupid in a way, right? It's the white dudes, right? And not always, and, you know, a lot of course, not all the doctors are going to be like that, but some of the ones that I've had the experiences with, it's like, don't love this. You know, so it's like, for whatever reason, I had this draw to this other doctor, and, you know, several years ago, and then now it's kind of weird because my former in-laws go to him too, like, which I didn't know at the time that I selected him, like, from the website when I was looking. It's like, he seems like a good guy, and, you know, so I'm going to talk to him, you know. And then I started going, and then I mentioned that I was going to a new doctor, and then, you know, it came up with my former mother-in-law, and then she's like, oh, I love him, that's where we go. It's like, okay. So then when I got divorced, you know, I'm leaving their kid and talking to my doctor about what was going on there. It's like, yeah, it's like narcissistic abuse situation. It's like, but you're not going to have that. Like, I don't know to what I don't know that my ex ever went there. I don't know that he didn't. I know his parents did. But yeah, so it was still that weird thing initially when I came back, and I still continued to go to him, but then I changed the name and it's divorced and all that stuff. And he was asking just in general about me and how things were going and whatnot. It's like getting divorced. It was abusive, you know, and it's like, yeah, whatever. And it's like, even that, like, whole thing is like hard to, I mean, like, the whole narcissistic abuse thing anyways, that, you know, part of it and part of why it's so hard to get out of is because they make you feel crazy. And then they, you know, it's like, once you feel it, then they latch onto it. Like when you have like when you respond as, you know, as a normal person actually would in an abusive situation, then they turn it on you as you're like crazy and start gaslighting you and all these things. And anyway, like there's all that. Anyway, so it's one of those things. It's like, it's hard to, yeah, that was just something I didn't even like talking about when I first was coming back, was how do you even talk about something when you're in an emotionally and psychologically abusive situation, and finally make the choice to choose yourself and your own sanity and your own mental health. But then, you know, like, okay, my family knew that he was freaking nuts, but my family isn't aware that they're also fucking nuts. So, you know, and it's only been through my healing from that situation with him that I've even started making the connections with my family, because that was how I got into the situation with him, right? You know, so of course they don't see it that. Anyway, this thing's whining at me and it's getting really annoying, and it's almost dark, and I can go out and play the damn game one more time. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. And yeah. So, oh, she's going to do it. She's going to get wild and crazy. Hey, come here. Hey, come here. You're not going to do it, right? Oh, that's my... I fell last year. I did a video talking about it too. You just randomly fell walking the dogs at the cemetery. These were those leggings. We're all in black cat mode today. Had my hoodie on. I didn't have a black cat. I had Sabrina Krampus. So Nightfall. Yeah. But anyway, that was excuse my dog beds over there. Anyway, I'm wrapping it up. So as always, I appreciate you. Until the next time.